My name is Sean Schofield. I'm one of the assistant directors here in the Cohen Career Center, and I manage the experiential learning program, so internships, externships, any type of involvement that the students have outside of the classroom, but tied together with their curriculum that they're going through. And in reality, a degree in modern languages is never going to be something that constricts them, because a lot of our students don't realize the skills, the abilities, and the things that they're really teasing out within that department are going to be really valuable to every employer. The biggest strength coming out of a department like modern languages, it's such an excellent way for students to gain a lens from a different cultural perspective. Something that is really desirable to employers is cultural competency. Obviously, language proficiencies, that's never going to be something negative. We're always looking to tease those out as the students are learning to tell their professional narrative. We want them to be able to say, I am culturally competent, I view the world through different lenses. It helps with my creativity and problem-solving skills, which is really something that employers look for. We try to look at what are employers really hiring. And it really comes down to 7 different traits. And the Modern Languages and Culture department really hits a lot of these strengths and makes desirable candidates. Being able to write at a professional level, Modern Languages, along with maybe the English department, they really focus on these writing skills, getting points across. Oral communication, another thing that's highly desired. So modern language students have a significant advantage because they're able to communicate often across cultural barriers, often in different languages, but they're definitely honing those skills throughout their time in the department. Problem solving is another thing that I think that the modern language students really have a strength in, because in looking at problems through different cultural lenses, they're often very creative in their problem-solving skills, which is something that's very desirable to employers. The other things that employers are really looking for, teamwork and collaboration, that's another thing that Modern Languages does a great job of, because there's a lot of collaborative work. The other thing is, a lot of employers talk about these study abroad opportunities for their students to experience other cultures firsthand. And that's another thing that most of our students that are going through this particular department, they're taking advantage of this. They're seeing China, they're seeing Russia, they're going around the world in order to really get that deep dive into a culture and even do internships and classes in that native language. So that's another thing that I think really can propel a student ahead, but what we need to do is always talk to them and how do I wind that into their language? We're trying to help them tell their best professional story. One of the things that students come into college with is they really have an understanding of the career field of their parents and maybe a few others, like their teachers, careers that they've seen in action or learned a lot about. So often our students come in before they're exposed to the variety of careers that are out there, and they have in their mind, okay, if my father's an accountant, my mother's an accountant, maybe I'm going to be an accountant. So once they look at this and say, wow, I don't like accounting, or maybe I do like accounting, but I like a lot of different things with it, and they start to craft their experiences here, select their major, and understand that there's this whole world out there of different careers that they can find satisfaction in. It's often the first time that they're exposed to all these different varieties of careers, and it's great because when we work with students, they just don't know what they don't know in the beginning. So we like to help them go through, look at their strengths, look at their values, things like that, and help them find a career that would fit them very well, that they can find satisfaction in. We take a lot of pride in our statistics because we do a first destination survey, and it's very telling in the marketability of certain majors on campus, and our students do very well. William & Mary as a whole does very well as far as getting students employable by the time they're finished here. It comes from that liberal arts background. It comes from that heritage of making sure we're hitting these employer skills that they need. Modern Languages actually does it even better than the campus community as a whole. Students in 2015 that graduated with degrees from the Modern Languages and Literature department, actually 48% of all of the students that we know about had a job offer and had accepted their job offer prior to getting their diploma. So for nearly half of all of the students going through that department to have their first destination outside of college in a full-time career field, that's a fantastic number. And it comes back to, again, those skills that they've developed. It comes back to being able to really demonstrate that they're a really desirable candidate to an employer. Since last year, we had students that were hailing from modern languages that went to Google, went to Microsoft. They're also going to the Department of State. We had a couple that went to the CIA because the language ability is very desirable to the intelligence community. We've had them go to the FBI, and this is just 1 year. In addition to that, pick a ton of different businesses that are doing trade across the borders, and we have a lot of students that go and stay in a country that they studied. So for instance, we had 2 students that are actually in Shanghai working in a business right now that came from the Chinese department. So it's really less of a question of where can they go and more of a question of there's really no place that they can't go. I'm never going to say that salary is not important because making money and being comfortable is very important. But in reality, when it comes to job satisfaction, salary is often the 3rd most important thing. Students, we want to make sure that students are aware of themselves. We want them to be aware of their own values. These values are the big things. It might be work-life balance. It might be, does my personal mission align with the mission of an organization or an industry that I'm going into? If the values line up, that will be more likely to give you job satisfaction than just the financial aspect. Also, we look at interests and aptitudes, because if the interests can keep you engaged, I mean, everybody has a honeymoon period when they start in a career. But if you don't have any shared interests with what you're doing, that honeymoon period ends pretty quickly. So if those are in alignment, we know that the student is actually probably going to have more satisfaction because those big things line up.